Okay, well, good morning, everyone. I'm not going to delay too much because I want to respect everyone who's on time. So those who are getting in a bit too late, they will catch up very soon. I want to welcome you all today on today's session on license optimization for S/4HANA Private Cloud. I think for most organizations, the move to S/4HANA Cloud is a reality today. Some of you are in the middle of a cloud migration, perhaps, or have just completed it, or perhaps about to start. I think one of the main topics that I keep hearing from many SAP customers is that the complexity and perhaps from time to time the lack of clarity around the licensing model that comes along with the cloud subscription. So that's also a bit the goal of today, that we hope to give you some more transparency and some more guidance in that case on the topic today. So while the licensing part might seem like a bit of a technical detail, it can actually be a major cost driver if not carefully monitored. So this is exactly why we are organizing this session. And so today, in the following hour and a half, we have SAP and Flexo in the meeting, who will show you how to gain control over your license usage, reduce unnecessary costs, and maximize, of course, the value after go live, and more specifically in a S/4HANA private cloud environment. Before we kick off, we have some ground rules, let's say, for this webinar session. So as we have several languages, of course, in our lovely country, we'll keep it very standard and do it in English so everyone can follow the session. If you have questions during the presentation, feel free to put them directly in the Q&A or in the chat. At the end, we have a specific part dedicated for Q&A, so then our presenters can answer all your questions at the end of the session. But so in order that you don't forget any questions that might pop up, you feel free to put them in the chat directly during the session. This session will also be recorded and shared afterwards together with the slides of the presentation, so you can enjoy it once more afterwards. And of course, if you have additional questions that might occur after the sessions, or you have some more detailed information you would like to have regarding the topic, feel free to reach out to our more generic email address, info@sapiens.be, and we would love to bring you in contact with our speakers today. Or if necessary, we can bring you in contact with other parties who can address your challenge. And then, of course, on today's agenda, we'll start with SAP covering the software asset management and adoption in S/4HANA private clouds, including, of course, the key licensing principles and the cost considerations, which will also why we are getting grip on licensing is so important for controlling your costs. And afterwards, we dive into the star analysis together with Flexo and its own tooling, which helps you understand, of course, the license usage after the go live to spot inefficiencies and identify optimization opportunities. So without further ado, I would give the floor to Jan from SAP. Jan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Niels. Let me bring up the slide deck. Here we go. So first of all, welcome everybody. My name is Jan Martinus Stalmans. I work as an adoption insight manager for SAP. It's great to see many familiar names here in the webinar today. And today my prime goal is to somehow highlight on where SAP is pivoting to from going from full license compliance to actually more making sure that customers use our software. And we developed a lot of new tools to somehow facilitate that. So my main message today will be around that. I also try to help you understand where you are and maybe where you want to move to, and what are the tools or services to get there. And I have a few little tips and tricks at the end that are hot topics and important to know for the future working and managing your licenses with SAP. So let's get started. So first of all, I'll just give a brief introduction on how SAP has changed, how GLAC has somehow moved from an audit and compliance organization to an adoption and experience organization. Then I'll somehow highlight the 3 key services we deliver to somehow facilitate and help our customers on that journey. Then I'll highlight a bit of the licensing frameworks that exist in order to understand where are you today with your company and how can you move to the next step. And the 4th point is about a new software asset management app that SAP launched last year, where a lot of new features are coming available now. I'll somehow highlight what it can mean for your organization, for which customers it's meant, and what it will bring you in the future. And on number 5, there will be some tips and tricks and some hot topics that I wanted to give to you today. Please keep your questions for after the session. I only have half an hour, so please let me bring my message, and I will address all your questions at the end of the webinar. You can put them in the chat so we can tackle them later. So first of all, SAP Adoption Insights Services is a new organization. It's part of the Center of Excellence of Adoption and Experience within SAP. It's part of the SAP Engineering department, where we are somehow responsible for making sure that customers use our software the way it's intended, but also how we can alter how customers actually use that. So we're trying to build more bridges between SAP and our customers to understand how software is being used, adopted, and so on. Subscription usage and license consumption is a small part of that, and that's where my business unit within SAP works upon. It's called SAP Adoption Insight Services, and we have 3 key services we somehow deliver to help our customers on their journey. First of all is the SAP License Pathfinder. It's for customers who are still on-premise and wish to move from ECC to S/4HANA, whether that's on-premise, cloud, or public cloud. Many of our customers are familiar with the star node these days, where we somehow help customers look at their authorizations, because in the new world, licensing is based on authorizations and no longer on license classification. Digital access is part of that service. Digital access becomes an integral part of the consumption of SAP once you move to a clean S/4HANA environment. Engine measurements changed, so we can also look at your current use and somehow project it towards to the new metrics that apply in S/4HANA on-premise, S/4HANA cloud, or public cloud. And we can also help you there with somehow the ramp up in the cloud and the ramp down on the on-premise side to make sure that's in sync as much as possible in order to optimize cost and so on. The next one is the SAP Adoption Insight Service, is where we actually help customers who have made the move or are moving towards SAP Private Cloud. In order to help them understand where are they on their journey, is what they estimated, is that in line with the reality, how can we renew, how can we restructure. Bringing data to the table is important there. So there again, we can use our existing tools to somehow bring all those insights to the table so the customer can make an informed decision together with their account executive. And then next to that, SAP saw that it's important to somehow visualize and bring this data towards the business part of our end customers. And that's why we developed a software asset management tool. And I'll come back on that later in the presentation. So first of all, where do you find all this? I think it's always important to not just give a link, but somehow enable customers where to find those services and tools and everything I will talk about today. It can be found on the SAP support portal. You go to the My Support on top and you'll see System and Installations. And there you see my Center of Excellence, where you can find all the services, and the system measurement and the license utilization for public cloud is the last of the third in the pink box. That's where you'll find all the reference to all the nodes, all the systems, how engines are measured, how our FUE system works. All this data is there. So these slides will be shared afterwards. But do know that you can always go to the source and you will be able to request services, find technical information just right there. So let's continue. Then, when we look at these license pathfinder and adoption insight services, they're actually built on 5 blocks. Uh, First, we need to know where are you today? What are your licenses today? What have you subscribed? What is still on premise? What is actually being used? What is underused, overused? I think it's important to have a clear view on where you stand today, and that's the basis to somehow start investigating how can you transform that or move that to the cloud or swap things on premise. That's the first step. That's mainly building like a customer license entitlement to somehow list up what is your entitlement you have today, and we try to fill in then later on how is it consumed and how would it project to the journey you would like to go. And now I'll go deeper into at least 3 of those. So first of all, when you come from an ECC world, we had like 40 plus types of user that was highly complex and over time very tedious to manage. When we moved to S4HANA, we reduced it to 4. Also there we had to do a mapping, and then later on when we moved to the cloud, we somehow even made it simpler to have it to one SKU and one licensing model, which are the fuel user equivalents. The people from Flexo will go into that into detail later, but the tool you can use there is the star node as it is used. There's actually 2 nodes you need. Yeah, you need to somehow verify your operational users that are actually consuming SAP in your production environment. That's where you need the star node. People who have done it, they will be familiar with this tool. There's also a node to somehow discover who will be a developer in the S4HANA world. On a high level, a developer there is not specifically a user, but a user who has done ABAP transports. It's a bit of a difference than in the past, but also there is a node to somehow discover that. There is one thing I want to mention on this. This tool works fantastically for customers who have one productive system. So you can use the tool yourself. It will give you all the ins and outs, and you could actually DIY this and work with it. But from the moment you work with multiple SAP installations, the node does not allow you to consolidate users over multiple systems. SAP does have the tool to do that. There is a way to use the SAM4U tool where I will go into details later, where also this will be possible. But just this node itself can only be used system by system. What's important is that this node, the developer access and the core use star node, is actually the exact same ABAP logic that is used to meter your consumption in the private cloud. So there's no difference there. It's the exact same logic. So start using the tool when you start to migrate to the cloud to do the correct estimations and so on. And later on, it will be used every month to somehow verify your consumption in the private cloud. So no difference in the tools here. Then next to that, of course, we do not only have users in SAP these days, we also have a lot of engines, and also on engine level that there was a shift from ECC to S4HANA on premise, where there was no more link between users and engines. And then there's also a big shift in engine measurement from on-premise to cloud. In on-premise, we still dealt with a lot of self-declaration products, and in the cloud, we actually moved to consumed revenues, for instance, and so on. So everything becomes more and more measurable in the cloud. Now, in order to do a correct projection, we have developed another node that you can run that will somehow simulate in your on-premise system how your consumption would look like if you would put that system in the private cloud. And that would allow you to somehow see, okay, do we want to keep this setup? Is this what we expected? Do we want to change? This is the insights we can bring to the table. So now we can somehow project your users. We can project your engines. And the last important step is, of course, digital access. We somehow need to verify. This stays an integral part of the valuation of the consumption of SAP. There is two ways you can do that. If you're already on S4HANA and you're on a certain enhancement pack, the ABAP code will somehow be built in on the passport principle, and you can somehow just run a report and somehow monitor your system. If you're not there yet, there is an estimation node you can use to somehow estimate it. And this exercise takes a bit more effort, so I highly suggest to reach out to SAP or to one of your partners to somehow have this verified. All the services I talk about today are free of charge, and there is no charge of that. They're part of your current SAP support you already pay. Then licensing frameworks. I think it's important to understand where you are and what can be used. In the end, you have customers that are still on ECC or have ECC with a little layer of S4HANA on top. They still have to deal with a lot of different types of users. They still need to take in mind that for their engine consumption, they also need users. They have two options of somehow covering indirect use, that they can adopt the digital access model, or they can still use their users to somehow cover that. They can still run on multiple databases. They can use the USMM tooling to somehow manage their consumption and license attribution and consolidation. And the good news is also they can already make use of the software asset management tool. That will be the last topic of my my webinar today. And we can also, of course, help them project their current systems towards the next pillar or the third pillar here on the screen. And then, of course, we also have the customers who already made the big move to S4HANA on-premise, which means that they have clean S4HANA licenses and are running live in S4HANA. And they have the four user types. They can run their engines. Digital access is managed separately. And they can only run on HANA. It can be runtime or full use. They can still use the basic USMM and LAW tools to somehow monitor their things. And for all the on-premise stuff, there is no consumption metering live in SAP for me. That's also one of the reasons why we made this software asset management tool available for these customers. And of course, also those on-premise S4HANA customers, we can help extrapolate their systems to what it would look like in the cloud. So we can also deliver the Pathfinder service there. Then once a customer has moved to PCE or the PTO RISE setup, we have to look at FUEs. That comes with its own intricacies. The people of Flexo will dive into that topic later. Also, their engines need to be monitored. The consolidated monitoring will be visible in SAP for me every first Wednesday of the month. Digital access will be covered. HANA is included in the subscription, so it's something that should not be managed separately. But also there, you could use SAM for you to gain more insights in how are my users distributed, why are they a certain level, why do they account for a certain amount of FUEs, where are my engines consumed, which business unit with which SAP installation consumes which license in order to somehow allocate costs. that can also be managed by this SAM4U tool, where we go into details later. And for these customers there, we can also support them in following up on where they are, how they want to move, are they doing acquisitions, how do we deal with that? Those are the adoption insight services we can deliver, and again, of course, free of charge. The long-term vision for SAP is, of course, to move customers to the public cloud. That's a long journey, but we see already now that we're moving away from the FUE principles there, because we somehow are splitting up the digital core of SAP into business suite segments, where logistics will be a separate entity, finance will be a separate entity, and then some core stuff that will be somehow licensed for users in a separate way. It's part of the vision of the future. Also there we still have engines, digital access is still part of it, HANA is included, and all the metering and consumption can be done in SAP for me. If you click on the link here, you will actually go later on to the support side, where it's actually explained how you can use SAP for me and other tools to also gain more insights on that level, and actually deep dive in system per system consumption. So wherever you are or whatever customers you work for, try to understand in which column you are, where you want to go, and that will show you what tools you can use and how SAP or a partner can help you to move there. So why a SAP software asset manager? And it's actually a tool that SAP developed for our enterprise super big customers, and then we're talking about the BMWs, Volkswagen, customers of SAP. They somehow requested from SAP to deliver a tool to somehow manage their license compliance stuff in a more visual way, and that's why we co-developed a Fiori app to somehow bring licensing insights towards the business, and not necessarily only to the IT department or people who can run these LAW and USMM tools. So SAP audits have always been quite tedious. From the moment we go to multiple systems, it becomes quite complex. It needs to be managed somehow. It's a burden for customers and for SAP. So we decided to bring this tool that we co-developed with some bigger customers to the whole market, and it actually will be an integral part for our customers to not only manage their licensing, and that's a bit of a spoiler alert, also actual consumption of SAP will become visible in there over time. So if you would start adopting this tool, you'll be ready to get all the insights you need in order to monitor your cost, optimize your users, and engine use, database use, and so on. We started with this like 9 or 10 months ago, so early last year. And what it actually does, it's a tool to give you an holistic overview on where you are with your SAP consumption, and to actually consolidate that, and also allow you to consolidate over multiple systems or combine systems for whatever reason you might need that insight. And the nice thing is, it's a visual thing. It's a Fiori application that brings all this data together. Now, there's two things that need to be done in order to get there. First of all, we need a new way of extracting data that can be sent to the Fiori app. So we first of all need a data extractor node to be installed. There's just a node who starts crawling for user data. Is basically the start tool, the digital access tool, and all this kind of stuff that is implemented, if not done yet. And it will also get your active usage data out in order to be sent towards the Fiori application, which is another node that needs to be installed in order to receive the data and visualize it for you. So what needs to be done is, of course, first we need to check whether your production systems are on the right release in order to have it implemented. So please check that first before you start working on the Fiori application part. SAP is still working on put it down to lower releases. If you follow this node, you will get updates on if that those things happen. So step first, get your data extractor installed on your production systems and your development systems in order to also get the development users out of there. And of course, you can use it on any system you want. If you want to do testing or staging or do simulations on another systems, those can be used. Just make sure that if you go into the tool for active consumption, that you make the correct consolidation of just the development system and the production system, because testing and staging environments do not count for license consumption. So what does it look like? So the big screen in the middle is your dashboard. You can actually tweak it how you want. You see here that there is a big overview of dialogue users here, and those are all the human beings accessing your system, and they will be categorized based on all the authorizations that will be done. You can also see how many are classified, how many are just open dialogue users. At the bottom, you can see your HANA consumption of gigabytes in memory. On the left side, you can see all your systems maintained in there that you can include or exclude in certain consolidations that might be of interest of you. And on the right side, you see more analytics and available data. In order to, well, let's first go through all the stuff that's actually available in there. So we have enhanced SAP usage tracking. It's the first time that we actually built a tool where you can keep your USMM data and your digital access data and your star data and actually keep it over time and see trends. I think that's an important thing. So you can see growth or decline and actually easily discover shelfware or things that might become shelf over time if a trend proceeds, and so on. So you might find opportunities or things you might have to discuss with your account executive. The data is there for your HANA consumption. An important part is, of course, to make sure that your licenses are correctly reflected in there. Also there we can help you to get it in there. So there I will talk about that service in a minute. So there is a few new features that will become available. I saw a few people in the webinar that have already been working with this. There will be new consolidation criteria that will become available in order to make sure we only count every human being once. It only says email address and full name, but there is more coming later this year. And then the important part is you will be able to do star simulations in the SAP for you tool, which means you can take away roles and authorizations as a simulation in order to see, would this bring me to compliance, or would it make enough space to onboard new people, and so on. And this can be done without affecting your actual classification in the software asset management tool. And then, of course, there is a way to, we'll be able to give you some recommendations into the tool as well. For instance, when you're running into the limits of your hardware and so on. So that's where we are now. I'll already give you one spoiler alert. This tool over time will also show you actual transaction consumption of your users. So you can actually also start mapping. does a person over a year consumed all its authorizations, or can we reduce it? Or do we need to enhance their authorization in order to make them more productive, and so on? And that's something that's not the data is already there. We're just still developing the functionality that will make that data useful in a visual way. So that's where we are there. So in order for you to make this work, we can support you in that. So we can have a look. We can make sure that you understand it. If you want to see a demo to somehow convince part of your organization whether this could be useful or not, we can bring that. And we can also help you with the setup once you have succeeded in installing the extractor node and the Fiori app. We can help you set it up, make sure that your license position is correctly reflected, because of course that's the first step in making the correct analysis. For customers who are completely into the private cloud and only there you can import your license from SAP for me, that should work fine. But customers with a complex history with SAP in on-premise and want to use this tool, please reach out to SAP and we'll help you make sure that your licensing entitlement is correctly reflected in the tool so it can be used in a correct way. Next to that, we also want to work with our customers and partners to improve this tool. So there is an influence portal available where you can request and upvote already requested features in order to prioritize the right features that our customers want in the software asset management tool. And for instance, the more consolidation options is one of the stuff that already came out of this influence tool. So that's where we are. I'll be able to address any questions later. And then some insights and future tools. I think that's an important one. I got a request from some of you to somehow bring a bit more insight in where are certain tiers going and how can I optimize my FUEs and digital access. You see here just a rough overview on where those tiers are. I just wanted to give that as an insight. This is somehow public information, not always easy to find. So you can see here for FUEs, there's a pricing range for 1 to 84, 85 to 109, 110 to 135, and the biggest one is 12,000 and 1 to 25,000, and then 25,000 plus. What's important to know, and it's valid for the FUEs and digital access, once you attain about 80% of the range, it starts becoming interesting to look at the next level, which means that 70 FUEs approximately in the lowest tier will be probably the same price as 85 of the next tier. So once you reach 80% of a tier, it might be interesting to look at the next level. You will get more usage for the same price and of course more growth. So I hope this will allow you to see where do we need to optimize to, or what should we look up and maybe for a better price look higher. And the same is valid for digital access. So take this in mind, look at these numbers, and I will share those with you. And please remember that 80% is a tipping point to look up or down, or if you want to optimize, know then that if you go below a certain tier, you need to optimize at least 20% in order to get to the same pricing level. So those are a bit of the commercial dynamics behind licensing optimization, and I wanted to share that with you today. Then an important topic that I wanted to bring today is are the SAP S/4HANA compatibility packs. What are those things? Is actually software or ECC engines that SAP made compatible with S4HANA, as long as those things were not technically ready or fully developed in S4HANA. It allowed you to somehow deploy ECC stuff on an S4HANA stack without needing a license. There is actually a deadline for that. It used to be 1st of January 2026. It's prolonged until May 26. But if you're running one of those compatibility packs on an S4HANA system, you need to take in mind that those use rights and your support will somehow expire May 26. It doesn't have to be a big of a drama. You just need to understand that you need to take action before that. There is a note that somehow explains which functionalities are impacted by that. A big one, there's a few use rights that are hidden into the ECC core that became an engine in the S4HANA world, and then I'm talking about HR, travel management, and there's a whole list in the note there. Do know if you have an old school SAP ECC engine, you can still swap it, so you can get your value back and reinvest it into the S4HANA on-premise thing until the end of May. And there are a few exceptions. If you have a path towards bringing these solutions to the cloud and the cloud contract is already contracted, you will maintain the compatibility pack until the end of 2033. There is a few exceptions like transportation management, customer service, and process industries that by default run until 2030. But if not, like for instance, HR, ECC payroll that runs on S4HANA, you would have to still do a contractual change or swap by the end of May. So if there are any questions, please reach out to your account executive or myself, because you will lose your use rights as of then, and it will be no longer supported. It can be solved. So if there's any questions or doubt, scan the note and reach out to your account executive and make sure that nobody runs into issue there. And the last thing I wanted to highlight again, this time for you is an important tool for SAP to bring the insights you need. So if you want to experiment with it, let us know. We're here to help. There will be more and more new services coming towards this tool. So if you want to be a pioneer, have a look, install it. It's free of charge. And soon these actual consumption will somehow pop up there. And it's also the future of licensing for SAP. So we're slowly moving towards capabilities of charging for actual use and not authorized use or users and so on. So that's a little glimpse into the future. And that was my message for you today. So Niels, back to you.
Okay, well, thank you, Jan, for this insightful presentation. Always good to see what SAP is cooking behind the scenes. Well, let's then dive into the second part of our session, and that will bring us to the session of Matthias and Tom from Flexo. They will dive in a bit deeper into the topic of the star analysis, which will give you which is a practical tool, let's say, for the usage of your licenses after the go live in the private cloud, let's say. So Matthias and Tom, please take it away.
Yes, hello. So I'll start sharing my screen. Yes. Good. Okay. So welcome in our session or in this session. My name is Matthias Steyaert. I'm an SAP authorizations consultant for Flexo, and together with my colleague Tom, who's also an SAP authorizations consultant, but with a bit more experience, we will take you today in to the wonderful world of SAP licensing and how you can reduce your costs with strategic role management. So for the agenda, we will explain very shortly in detail what the licenses are and how they are calculated, the link with your SAP authorizations and your roles, with a business case, and then also some tips and tricks for licensing costs in the future, how to keep your licenses under control. So what are sub licenses? Can you relate? So in this example, we had a customer with 40 FUEs contracted. I believe now the minimum amount is 60 FUEs. And Sub4Me told this customer he's using 58 FUEs instead of 40. The company contacted us with small question, okay, what is happening here? And what does this mean? So then maybe a bit of an overview. You are potentially in one of these five pillars. Let's say you are either on ECC, you have S/4HANA on-prem, so that means that you have your own data center provided, let's say, or you are on S4 as a hyperscaler, already on private cloud or already on public cloud, which means that you're no longer maintaining your own data center and you're in a way in the cloud. Then in the future, you will be moving towards the private cloud or the public cloud, let's say. And based on the session of today, we will be discussing the FUE principle, so the full use equivalent, which is available on the private cloud level, as we just saw in the previous session. So yeah, the scope of today, we will be discussing the direct user access licensing or full use equivalent, and you can see already here the self-service, core, and advanced use. So that's a part of the user access. And this is explained further here. So SAP licenses are contracted via a number of FUEs. That's the number of SAP user accounts that use SAP with full functionality, let's say. In short, we can say that if you use SAP with full functionality, you're either doing financial transactions or purchasing transactions, let's say. So in a way, you are legally binding your company towards external partners. So you're either purchasing, which means that your company will eventually get an invoice and will be held accountable for paying that invoice, or you're in the financing department and you're actually doing payments, consolidations, and these kind of things. There are also special calculation ratios for a light version or a light use of SAP. For example, only the display access. And here we have 4 user types that are available, let's say. We have an advanced use, a core use, a self-service use, and a developer. And those all relate to a specific ratio of FUE. Before RISE, there were other namings available: professional, functional, productivity, and also developer. So if you were aware of these old namings, let's say, these relate to professional, advanced, and these kind of things. And the calculation ratio is for an advanced user, that's 1 FUE. For a core user, it's 5 core users or 1.2 FUEs per user. And then self-service, as you can read, is you need 30 self-service users in order to fulfill 1 FUE. Keep in mind that you don't need to fulfill one FUE. You can also have only 28 or 15 self-service users, which would then relate to half an FUE or 1.83 FUE whatsoever. Developers are quite heavily charged, let's say, as they are highly impactful for your company into your system. So they have 2 FUEs. I believe someone is still not on mute, but okay. So again, an example to make it more concrete or to make it more in details. So you have a contract for 60 FUEs with SAP. You have 35 sub-user accounts. Which sub-user accounts are taken into calculation? That means that your users are valid, so that they are active on the date of the extract, let's say, that they are unlocked, and that they are dialogue. That means that communication users, service users, system users are not part of this FUE calculation. And it's also only on the productive environment. So if you have a development environment or a testing environment, these FUEs or these rights that are assigned over there to your users are not calculated in your FAE counts.
With the exception of developers that are being counted on the development environment.
Correct, indeed. So in this example, just to make again the calculation a bit more practical, let's say you have, for instance, 40 advanced users, they relate to 40 FUEs, 30 core users, they relate to 6 FUEs, and so on and so on, which means that for 35 sub-user accounts that are valid, unlocked, and dialogue, you have a link with 58 FUEs, which means that you are fully inside of your contract. Then FUE is based on access rights, and this is what was already highlighted in the previous presentation, but it's really important, and a change towards the ECC calculations, because this relates, your FUE calculation relates to what a user can do instead of what a user does or should do or whatever. So it's really linked to the roles that are assigned to your user. We will further dive into detail on this principle, let's say. But here we can see this is a list as to give you guys an idea of what is advanced, what is core, and what is self-service. I'm going to pick some out, like the first ones: accounts payable, receivable, cash management. Those are all related to finance, financial accounting, and reporting. We can also find that the purchasing, contract management, and purchase order processing is advanced. Sales master data management, and for instance also supplier evaluation. So if you have these kind of rights, or your user has these kind of rights via his or her roles, this user will be an advanced user and will relate to one FUE. Then in the middle we have the core use with inventory analysis, for instance, Kanban, production, BOM maintenance, these kind of things, quality. These are correlated, which means that 1 in 5, as it is below. So you have 5 core users for 1 FUE. And then the self-service use, which is mostly in a practical environment, or in a practical sense, display only access, or approval rights only, or timesheet input, these kind of things. If your users only have those kind of accesses into SAP, then it's only a self-service user. And
also the blue collar work, like goods movement, delivery management.
These kind of things are self-service use. But keep in mind, if one object in a certain role is linked to an advanced use, then
which comes to the next
slide, then that user will shift, and here the developer 2 against 1. So as an example, the most expensive access right wins in a way. So for instance, we have role A and role B. which role A is let's say a financial role, let's say posting of GL documents, maintaining material master, and performing goods movement. Okay, these relate to three different types of use. And then role B as maintain sales orders and the timesheets, for instance. So if a user has a combination of these two roles, this will be an advanced user account relating to one FUE. Then, for instance, if we would remove the GL access, only the core use would and the self-service use would remain, making this user, based on his or her access rights, a core user account. Based on what you can do and what you use. For instance, a user has role A and role B. But the only thing that a user does in the system is perform goods movement and enter his or her own timesheets, which means that by use, that user would only be a self-service user, but by role and by access rights, this user will still be an advanced user, which means that for your FUE calculation, this will be an advanced user, and in a way you overpay in your licensing costs for the use of SAP. And then also important because like we also mentioned already, already mentioned that it's about the roles. We all have roles in our system. We all know they kind of get eroded over time. So it's indeed what is in the role, so the content of the role, that is important and not just the naming. So what we often see is that, for instance, a certain role is displayed or is named as a display role or an enter timesheets role, but in time some access was added for convenience, which means that even though a user visually only has display role, for instance, if these display roles contain certain objects that are core or advanced, that means that that user will also shift upwards towards an advanced user account. So what do you need to know? You need to know your roles that are being used, so the roles that are actually assigned to your users. You also need to know the content of your roles, meaning that display access really only has display access, financial access has finance access, for instance, and also, which is important, and we will see that in our business case, which of your users are actually active in your system. So potentially, these are all challenges that you as users of SAP can relate to. So then we come to our business case with the root cause analysis and the review of the authorization model of this specific customer. Again, the business case was with 40 FUEs contracted. Now the minimum amount is 60. So that user had, or that company had 40 FUEs contracted and 58 FUEs metered in the SAP for me application. We took a snapshot of that system and we came up with 36 user accounts in the productive environment and 0 developers. There was one developer which was a service user account, another dialogue account, meaning that for the FUE count, he didn't calculate in. So with only 36 users or 36 user accounts were active, meaning that we were a bit baffled.
Yeah, but the assignment was, okay, please explain, we have 36 users, but we have 58 FU metered. Please explain how, where does it come from, and what can we do and prevent this contract overrun or whatever you call it.
So our first idea was, okay, there's going to be a lot of developers in. Wasn't the case. So we investigated further. a little bit more on the FUE calculation. So the star rule set, indeed, already mentioned in the previous session, that there is a technical rule set for developers and also for business users. Each couple of months there are slight changes. That's also updated in these S notes. Yeah, it's really a detailed overview of, on an authorization object level, which object and which activity is core, is advanced, or is self-service. We as Flexo, we also have our own tooling based on table extracts. So we take extracts from a certain amount of tables, based, of course, on the latest version of the star rule set. And there we do our calculations. Why do we do, or why do we use our own tooling? Yeah, some advantages, let's say. So initially there is no SAP involvement needed. So it can be used as an internal exercise, root cause analysis, before going into SAP and into detailed calculations, let's say. Speed. We can do this quite quickly, and there's also no ABAP development or general development needed. It's just extractions out of tables.
Especially for us as consultants that do not have ABAP development access, and we don't need to go to the team. Can you please implement this, etc.
Yeah,
so
indeed.
It's easier and faster.
Yeah. And we are potentially have a more depth analysis of the root causes, so the roles and the objects. So linking, okay, we have a certain user which is advanced. How does it come?
Where does it originate from? Where does it come from?
What is the reason this user is an advanced user? So, okay, it comes from this role and it comes from this specific object inside of this role that, is the cause of this user being in a higher FUE level than would be anticipated. So again, to our business case, so we had 36 user accounts and all of them were advanced. So, okay, this relates to 36 FUEs. Then we looked a bit further. Okay. We then did a reconfirmation with our customer.
Yeah, so maybe one slide back.
Yeah.
So we had 36 advanced users, which we know one advanced user is one FUE. So we had 36 FUE, but the customer came to us with 58 FUE. So
correct.
We were missing something there.
So we went back to the customer and they did a rerun of their sub for me. And apparently they did, before we entered into the system, they already did a cleanup of idle users, which meant that by the time we got in, their amount of users or FUEs was already dropped from 58 to the 36 that they had. So this is as an example. There's also a lot that you as a client of SAP or as a user of SAP can do just by keeping your idle users as low as possible. So again, you're talking FUE about valid users, that's the date that are active, unlocked and dialog users. So with correct onboarding and offboarding procedures and keeping keeping tabs on this, you can already, that's the first win for you guys. So you can already have your FUEs under control. But the question of the customer
still was, okay, why are they all advanced?
Yes.
So that was the next step to understand where the advanced license cost was coming from.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, or as we mentioned, all 36 user accounts were advanced. We took first a glance at their single roles, which were active in the system.
Yeah, and we were assigned to the users, and we noted that, okay, there was quite a high diversity in the role content itself. So we had roles with an advanced license cost. We had roles with a medium, with a core, core.
Self-service.
Self-service indeed. But all 36 users had at least one role with a high, so with an advanced license cost. And we already know that the highest cost wins. So if you have at least one role with an advanced license cost, yeah, the user is identified as an advanced user. So all 36 users had at least one role with advanced license cost. And the first thing we did was, okay, let's have a look at the content of those roles, of the advanced roles. Maybe the content is incorrect, and maybe we can find some quick wins to clean up the roles, so making them a core or even a self-service role, so that we also lower the cost of the users. And we had several findings, and we thought, okay, this is going to be an easy one, because we found roles, business roles with IT access. We found that the basic role, so the bird right role, the role for all end users, had full debug access. We found a lot of temporary role assignments, and temporary role assignments are typically like a dump of access rights, not maintained to the best practices. So we really thought, okay, this is going to be easy to explain everything. So we went into a simulation of cleaning up the roles, and we thought, if we take away the debug access from the basic role, if we take away the IT access from the business roles, okay, we're going to lower the license cost significantly. I should not be using words with more than 3 syllables. But okay. Anyway, so we simulated our cleanup, and the results were
not what we expected.
So instead of 36 advanced users, we still had 31 advanced users. So even with a cleanup of the roles, the content of the roles being cleaned up, people still had a lot of roles assigned to them, of which at least one of them was advanced. And with the simulation of the cleanup, we knew that the advanced role that was assigned was correct, so was correctly an advanced role. So the next step is now to review with the business, is that role assignment correct? Should that user have or have not that advanced license?
Which means that those decisions were business decisions, meaning that, for instance, a warehouse guy who's in a way only doing goods movements, should he or she also be creating purchasing orders, these kind of things, as an example. So then the further long-term advice. So we are in SAP, we are using an ad hoc model, general in SAP. So that's role-based access management, meaning that the access that you have in SAP comes from roles that were either created by SAP or created by yourself. So then we are talking about roles. Make sure your roles are transparent and understandable is our first tip, let's say, or first pillar.
Typically, roles are black boxes, and you don't know what is in there unless you have like a technical person, an authorization skilled person that opens the role, looks inside, and understands what's in there. But by default, I mean, it's like you see here on the screen, it's a black bottle. You don't see what is in it. And you just have the label printed on it, saying what is in the role. So
also
it's
making
extremely important that you put something on the label that is business language. So it's not only understandable for IT, but you can also increase business involvement if you use business language.
Yeah, and the second part is granular access is more maintainable access. We give you 2 scenarios. One scenario which all M&Ms are in one pot, and then another scenario where they are split up. You are in a scenario where a business's decision is taken. Okay, we need to add yellow M&Ms, but we need to remove blue ones, for instance. Which of the 2 scenarios will be more easier to do so? So meaning that on a role-related content, create roles that make sense, single roles, where actions are linked to one another. So if you have a single role with finance access, with purchasing access, with goods movement access, and with timesheet access, for instance, in one role, then it will, then you are in scenario one. It will almost be impossible to split that role up, or to use that role in order to keep your licenses as low as possible, because based on the finance and the purchasing access, everybody with that role will automatically become an advanced user. And then also build up your role model in line with your business processes. So we have here a small example of a purchasing flow. So we have create purchase order, which is an advanced user license. For that, a user or a purchaser needs to look at what is the current stock of a certain material, and also the vendor master data. That vendor master data is maintained by a master data expert, for instance. After the purchase order has been sent out, there's a goods receipt by a warehouse operator, who also displays, for instance, the stock, making sure that the goods movement was entered correctly. And then afterwards, your AP accountant checks again the vendor master data, enters the invoice, and performs the payment.
Yeah. So in short, in every process, we have process steps being performed by functions. And we already know from one of the previous slides that each process step is linked to a specific license calculation cost.
Correct.
That's the key message of this. So if we're going to translate this to our airbag model or our authorization concept, well, typically in SAP, you have single roles and composite roles, but the basis is that for each step in a process, we create one single role, and that single role contains only the access for that specific step, nothing more, nothing less. But the idea is that the step can be performed by that role on its own. So the roles stand on their own, they work on their own. You don't need to add extra roles. For example, if you need to maintain vendor master data or you need to maintain purchase orders, you need that role. You don't need another role, but the role does not contain more than what it says. And that's important to understand here, because here you have like several views. Sorry, and I forgot to say, and obviously with the composite roles typically roles that bind other roles or collect other roles to be able to easily give to users. So for every process step, we create a single role, we combine them in composite roles based on the functions, and then we assign them to users. And here we see the core values of your airbag model, because it's transparent. It's very easy. We have one of the top users, let's say Sylvia. Okay, what is Sylvia? Okay, Sylvia is a master data expert. What does that mean? Well, a master data expert is somebody who is able to maintain vendor master data and display vendor master data. The Jos, what is he? He's a purchaser. Purchaser, what does it mean? Okay, he's able to purchase or to maintain purchase orders and display stock inventory. But it's also maintainable because we can take away the lower Lego building blocks. And if we take away, for example, maintain purchase orders, okay, the user is not able to perform or to create or change purchase orders anymore, but he is able to do all the rest. So from an access management perspective, it's very maintainable, it's very transparent. From an SOD conflict, from an access risk perspective, it's also easier. Let's say you're not allowed to do vendor master data and perform AP payment runs. Okay, you know it's two single roles, so you have to take away one of both. So it's easier to have a view on your access risks. And the topic of today, the license cost, since every step in SAP is linked to a specific license cost, well, that means that because every single role is linked to a specific functionality in SAP, so also linked to a specific license cost. So we make it very visible and maintainable to keep control over our license costs. I took away your thunder.
No.
Go ahead.
Just keep in mind that you can do this from a perspective of licensing costs. You can also do this from a risk perspective, making sure that the people in your system only can perform what they need to perform. And for instance, that nobody can, or only a limited amount of people can change bank account numbers and these kind of things, or only a limited amount of people can change access rights of users. So no user can grant his or herself additional access, these kind of things. And yeah, it's also for efficiency, of course. And then last, keep it clean. Which we also see often
As consultant
at a customer, that at some point the role model was quite clear and clean, and yeah, due to a lack of consistency or in-house knowledge, rather functional and technical, roles get eroded. Roles get so the temporary access rights, for instance, they create a role and they just add several objects and several values in it and assign that role to users. Also, temporary access rights, because a certain user was a replacement temporarily, and then a new user comes in and just a copy of that user is given, taking again the access that is not needed onto a new user, for instance. This all pushes potentially your FUE use up.
Yeah. So just to briefly summarize the slide, the core message of the slide is, okay, you can have like the nicest looking consultants to come and implement your role model, but in the end, yeah, once it's set up, you need to keep it clean, and you need a lot of things like consistency, knowledge. You need your governance framework, who is maintaining what, who should be approving what, how are you going to do your on and offboarding, change management, etc., etc. You need your C-level support, and you can do it without tooling, but tooling helps a lot.
Yeah, to keep an overview, of course.
Yeah. I think we are done.
So
Okay.
that's only our summary that's remaining. So what is our conclusion for you guys to take with you? That sub-licenses or FUEs are allocated based on user access rights, of course, as we mentioned a lot of times in these sessions. So it's what your user can do, not what your user does. If you have hidden, unwanted, or unexpected high licensing costs, you might have an obscure or eroded role setup, or just a wide access model that users in your company have generally wide access,
or a combination
of the two. And how do you keep that clean, or how do you keep that maintainable? By using, of course, an ad hoc model, which is mandatory in SAP. You get access via roles. So transparent and understandable, that's the labels, and yeah, so that's the labels.
So the role content matches the role description.
Yeah, granular and maintainable, so that's the M&Ms. So making sure that a role is advanced and has a lot of advanced access, but a role that has 90% of self-service access, make sure it is 100% of self-service, so you have a self-service role that you can use, and do not put one or two advanced items in it, because then everything shifts up again. And again, supported by the right stakeholders and process to keep it clean. And then where can we help you guys with this access management?
I was going to look at you. Okay, no, in everything, basically everything. We can help you set up the roles itself, and make sure the role quality is correct, or the role assignments are being done correctly, the users being set up correctly. We can help you build the governance framework, so the policies, the procedures, the SOD conflicts identification. We can help you in the design, the setup, the operational support afterwards. We can help you identify quick wins. We can help identify long-term solutions. We can help you with your approach and your roadmap, and we can do it from the perspective of just being the best in class and the coolest person on earth in terms of authorizations. We can do it from a risk perspective, or in this case, the license cost perspective.
Okay, so that was it for our part. I don't know, Niels, do you take over again? We go to Q&A, or?
Yes, let me just take over the screen again. First of all, thank you a lot, Matthias and Tom. I think it was very insightful. Even for me as a non-key user or non-expert, it's very lovely to see some examples about M&Ms. Makes sense to even to me. Also very nice, you cleaned up your bedrooms for the pictures you took. But so now we're up to the Q&A. So if you have questions, feel free to put them either in the chat, or you can use the functionality to raise your hand and you can set up your microphone and ask your question straight away. I think we already had one question in the chat. If I look, yes, so we had one coming from Johan. The rule set used in our initial star analysis has changed from version 1.65 to 1.69. Will it change in the future?
If you want, I can answer on that. So let me explain what has happened over the last 1.5 years or so since we do this tooling. We had to somehow bring in line 89,000 transactions in to make sure that they're somehow aligned with the right contractual agreement that we made with all our customers. And for now, it looks like everything is crystallized out, but there has been changes over time in order to bring them in line what was contractually agreed. So it looks stable for now. I think the last changes happened June last year, so that's 9 months ago now. So it looks like it has crystallized out, and I don't foresee any major changes there. So for now, it should remain stable. And if you want to follow up, just start the node in SAP for me, and you will get a notification when there's new additional changes or whatsoever. If you're a partner or you're actively managing this, you can follow it up right there.
Okay, thank you, Jan. I hope this answers your question, Johan. If there are any other questions, feel free to ask them. Now is the time.
Looks like everything was clear.
Well, as I said, I'm not a real expert, but also from my point of view, I think I want to thank you already for the great presentations, both from SAP and Flexo side. I think very insightful also with the examples you gave. In the meantime, I don't see any new questions being raised, but perhaps people are still thinking. And if not, of course, it can occur that some questions will not pop up at the moment. You feel free to put them on email and send them to us. We can directly direct them to our presenters of today, and they can reply on it afterwards. So you feel free to let the content of today sink in a bit, and then you can raise your questions a bit more in detail. In the meantime, feel free to think of some more questions if they might come up. Let me already take you further to what is coming up. As you know, at Sapiens, we always love to get some more connection moments. So we also have some new events coming up across different line of businesses within the SAP Solution Suite. So I think end of this month, we have one about Gen AI and data warehousing innovation. And then 2 days later, we have one on AI-driven maintenance with SAP Enterprise Asset Management. And of course, in the coming months, we have a lot of different other events from both HR, supply chain management, ERP. We go to the full suite, let's say. And the next physical event will be the 2nd of April. It will be more about the BTP functionalities, so how to innovate your current stack or your core setting with more integrations, AI enablements, features, integration builds, applications, extensions, and so forth. So how to keep your core clean, let's say, and innovate in a intelligent way. And already mark your calendar, let's say, for our flagship event of the year, which is always the user day at the end of the year, which will be on the 1st of December. And more specifically, because we're now a bit more in the setting of licensing and adoption, we have another session planned, which will be in beginning of October, the first one. And I think the idea would be more than to have some more focus on the public cloud environments, but the final program will be communicated a bit later on. I see in the meantime, do we have another questions? I think one. Will the presentations be made available? This one I can answer myself. We will share all the presentation decks and recording afterwards, so all of you can look into the session once more or share it afterwards internally. So the answer shortly is yes. Okay, I think without any other questions, we are within the time frame. So I want to thank you once more, Jan, Matthias, and Tom, for the presentations. Thank you all for being here today with us, and I hope you enjoy your lovely afternoon. For those who haven't eaten something, feel free to go and grab your lunch, and then we will see each other very soon in one of our hopefully next sessions. So thank you, and hope to see each other very soon. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks for hosting, Niels.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.